I'm Ryan, and I'm an alcoholic. These were the scariest words I'd ever spoken, but I'd come to the end of myself. And the first time I said these words, I did so with lots of fear and trembling. My voice was shaky, my hands were clammy. Sitting in that meeting with those people, I didn't know if I'd say it when it came around to me. My head was swirling. All I could think about was, I'm a pastor. What will people think about me? I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here. How do I get here anyway? How did it get this bad? It was never supposed to be like this. The shame. What if people found out? But I said the words. I admitted it, and it was the very beginning of a burden being lifted. See, I felt like Jacob from the Genesis story, the very first book of the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible. See, Jacob was on the run from God, his past, himself, everything. Jacob was on the run. Jacob wasn't free. But as the story progressed, he found himself in a brutal wrestling match with God. There were wounds, flesh wounds and ego wounds. And there at the banks of the Jabbok River, Jacob was asked, "Who are you?" And for the first time, he said his own name. I am Jacob. And it's like God said, good, because you and I, we've got some work to do. Now we can move forward. In that moment of admitting who I was for the first time and all the fear and unknowing, I knew what it was like to finally say no to shame, to say yes to a path of being free. It was like saying my name again for the first time. And thanks be to God and some friends who showed me the way out of the chaos. I've been sober since January 7th of 2013. God did for me what I could never ever do for myself. And in sobriety, I found my why. My why, my calling, the thing that gets me out of bed in the morning is as clear as ever. To help others find God and beauty in the midst of mess and brokenness. You know, about 3 years into my recovery, I started opening up more about my addiction and recovery. And with the guidance of friends and mentors in my life, I stood before my congregation and spoke honestly about my addiction and my journey through sobriety. It was another one of those really scary moments in life. Would they turn on me? Would they do the math and figure out that I got sober 6 months after joining them as one of their pastors? Would they want me to leave? I have to tell y'all, I was met that Sunday with an incredible amount of grace and love and compassion. The congregation to me that morning was God in the flesh. And by Monday morning, my email box was flooded. Emails that said things like, I've been battling the bottle or the pills or the drugs for years. I can't stop. How'd you stop? Emails from family members pouring out their hearts. My son or daughter, or brother or sister, or mom or dad is in this dark pit of addiction and I've never told anybody. Gut-wrenching emails from people expressing that they had lost hope. And it wasn't just from the congregation. It was from folks from the broader community too. And from that day forward, my ministry was fundamentally changing. Because now when I looked out into the community, I saw with more depth and more awareness pain and suffering and death and addiction. And about 2 years ago, my wife Tammy and I started asking the question, what would it be like to start a faith community, a spiritual community that centers on issues of addiction and recovery? Not to go to the inner city and start something there, but to start it right here in our own backyard, in the heart of the suburbs. We put together a launch team of 12 people to begin the conversation of starting something new. And you know that starting something new is scary. If you're passionate about it, it will always come with a bit of doubt and lots of questions. It will always come with some twists and turns. So we were building our launch team, and I sat down with my boy Nick. And Nick was 20 years old, and he was an addict. And as a fellow addict in recovery, Nick and I had some things in common. In fact, we knew each other through the rooms of recovery. And man, Nick, he had this smile that could light up a room. He was an easy guy to like. You wanted to be around him. And I sat down with Nick that Thursday morning, and I invited Nick to be on our launch team. And I told him that our first meeting was going to be next week. And he got this big smile. He said, you want me to be on the team? I've never really done the church thing. And he said, man, the fact that a priest would want me. And I said, Nick, man, I'm not a priest. I'm a pastor. A priest would be in the Catholic Church. His smile got even bigger. He said, man, for a priest to be asking me. And I reminded him, Nick, man, I'm not a priest. I'm a pastor. I think he got it that time. And he was so excited to be part of the team. We shared one more cup of coffee together. And right before he left, I asked him what he was going to do for the rest of the day. And he said with a huge smile, my brother and sister are home. I'm going to go hang out with them. And then he said, and this afternoon, I'm going to clean my mom's closet because it's a mess. He said that with a smile too. That following Monday, I received a phone call from Nick's mom. Her heart was breaking into a million little pieces, and mine was breaking with hers. Nick relapsed and didn't wake up that morning. The drugs in his body prevented that from happening. He died of a heroin overdose, just days before his 21st birthday. Man, I hate this disease of addiction. And last I talked to Nick, he was excited to be clean and sober. He was headed home to spend time with his younger brother and sister, and 4 days later, he's gone. Yeah, the way of addiction is cunning, baffling, and powerful. That same year, 2018, I did 5 other funerals of those who had died of a drug or alcohol overdose, and all but one of them were under the age of 35. We were seeing this very real need in our community. On a very practical level, I was tired of seeing my friends die. Tammy and I started Free Spiritual Community that summer. And by the way, we call it free because all the things that set us free, grace, compassion, love, forgiveness, these are the things that are so freely given by God. And it's a community for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. And what we do at Free is break the silence of addiction while creating space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. You see, in my faith tradition, Christianity, we believe that God is always inviting us into the fullest kind of life, the most abundant kind of life. And Jesus said, I came so that they may have life. The drugs, the booze, the addiction, it is a very different kind of God, always begging the one addicted to bow down. And this God has a way of keeping you coming back for more. But this God is the worst kind of God. This God is like a thief coming to rob and steal and destroy, robbing you of everything that matters in life. Relationships, connection, joy, peace, health, a future. It always takes life. It took Nick from us way too soon. It's taken so many others from us way too soon, and it is still taking people from us way too soon. And every single week at Free, I remind our people that in this community, we don't do shame. We don't do shame because shame never works. It never transforms the heart. And if you've ever battled addiction or loved someone battling addiction, chances are you've dealt with enough shame. You don't need more of that. God doesn't do shame either. God loves unconditionally, no matter your past or present. People ask me all the time, where is God in such suffering? See, I am convinced God is found crying with every single addict who's in battle, every single mom or dad or brother or sister or son or daughter who's standing by watching their loved one battle. God doesn't abandon the suffering. God weeps with the suffering. Soon after Nick's passing, I received questions about where Nick was in his standing with God. Would God need to punish him for all of his poor choices? And during his funeral, I reminded his friends and family and loved ones that we could all put those concerns to rest. The drugs, the booze, the addiction did a fine enough job in the punishment. I reminded them that God is love, period. For every addict who's taken their last breath due to an overdose, I have no doubt God was the first one to welcome them across the threshold, greeting them with a bear hug. Welcome home, my boy. Welcome home, my girl. May you now experience peace, because this is the God who always offers the most abundant kind of life. And see, here at Free, we replace shame with grace. And we have to get real clear about this. God's grace is always freely given. It's never earned. If it has to be earned, it's not grace, it's something else. God loves because God is love. We replace shame with grace because grace has the power to transform. Grace reminds us to see the humanity in the other because we've seen our own humanity. And I know for many, an overdose is just the loss of one more junkie, one more good-for-nothing addict, one more drain on society. But grace invites us to see them as people, a child of God, loved by God, created in God's image. Grace allows us to see them as people, someone's son or daughter, as one who came into the world the same way you did, full of life and potential and a future. Nick was headed home to hang out with his brother and sister and to clean his mom's closet, to surprise her and make her smile. And for the nearly 72,000 Americans who died last year of an overdose, every single one of them was a child of God, loved by God and created in God's image. And for every loved one suffering in the wake of their death, your love for them was good. It was enough. And if your heart is still breaking into a million little pieces, know that God has not abandoned you, because God never, ever abandons the suffering. God stands in solidarity with the suffering, with you. And let me speak candidly with you all for just a moment. If you're watching right now and you're battling addiction, you need to know there's a solution. There's a way out of the chaos and despair, but you have to reach out. I'd be happy to talk with you, and I know so many others who would be happy to talk with you, and not just talk with you, but to lock arms and walk with you. But my brothers and sisters, you have to reach out. You don't have to walk this journey alone. You're worth more than that. You were made for more. You were created for connection and love and joy and peace and wholeness.